Hello, hello. Welcome to another edition of Next Generation Tech Talks. My name is Phil Calzadilla. I am the founder and CEO of NextNet Partners, and I am very pleased to have with me today Mr. Chad Chaffee. Chad, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
So Chad is our practice director at NextNet Partners for our core practice. To give you a little background on Chad, he has been in the technology business for quite some time. That song was 1985, but I don't think it was that far back, right?
No, not that far.
So he was an engineering manager, a consulting engineer, an architect, solution architect, especially around security, and then once again was an engineering manager for a very large integrator. And we're very happy for him to be the lead of our core practice. And our core practice really is security, wireless, core networking, like route switch, all that good stuff, data center core networking. So it's a very important practice. It's kind of like the foundation, really, of everything that we do at NextNet, because everything else we do rides on top of that.
Exactly.
And so, Chad, we love having you on the team. Glad you're here today. And what are we going to talk about today, Chad?
I believe we were talking about IWAN.
IWAN. That sounds like such a funny. Every time I hear IWAN, it sounds like a whiny kid or something. Like, tell that kid to stop IWANing.
Nice.
But what the heck is IWAN?
So IWAN is a Cisco architecture that allows customers to be able to save money across all of their remote sites, simplify the management and deployment of those remote sites, as well as enable some new business initiatives and business models.
Nice. So talk to me about how does it save money on remote sites? So let's back up. What exactly does it do? So I have this IWAN thing now. It replaces my router. I just put it out there. Talk to me about it. And I'm playing dumb on purpose, people. Please don't think this is normal. No, I'm just kidding. I do know that, sometimes there's so many acronyms and stuff that we use in our business that, the stuff can all come together for folks, right? There's SD-WAN, there's IWAN, there's a lot of things out there. So go ahead, please. Yeah,
so you still are going to need your routers and switches in your environments. But what IWAN is an overlaying architecture that combines a lot of technologies that Cisco has had over the last several years, but has improved around DMVPN, performance-based routing, some application visibility and control that allow you to save money in the fact of the DMVPN enables you to go over commodity circuits versus dedicated T1s, which for customers that have multiple remote sites, that's a large cost and expense for them.
Yeah.
So saving money by sometimes 10 times the amount because circuits could cost anywhere from $600 plus a month, where commodity internet, sometimes you can get around the $60 range. Yeah. When you multiply that by a lot of sites, that can be a lot of savings for customers.
Yeah, totally. So basically what this is at the end, and I'm just going to kind of restate this in probably a sales guy's way to put it. It's probably the best way to put it. So basically, for a client, if they have locations, and really you don't need more than 3 or 4 sometimes, right? Because heck, if you're paying $600 plus for a dedicated circuit from like an AT&T or Verizon or some other big national carrier, right? And instead of doing that, you're able to buy a local like Cox or just some local cable provider like Big Fat Pipe. So you're going from like maybe 1.5 megabit or 10 megabit, right? Some smaller type of connection to 100 meg, and you're paying from $600 down to like $100 to $200 because sometimes business class, they charge us a little more.
Yep.
I know that personally. So, but still it's way less than 600, right? So 200 is better.
Yes.
And so now I've got, and you're thinking, okay, well, now hold on a second. I had this private infrastructure that Verizon and AT&T built for me, right? So I knew no one else was on it. I knew that it was just me and my team. Those are my offices. But now I'm going to this IWAN product, which is Cisco's IWAN, right?
Yes.
And now I'm going to this, I'm just getting a regular internet pipe, and you're putting this stuff out on my location. So magically that internet pipe becomes a private pipe for me, right?
Yeah. So for the corporate traffic that you're running across back to your data center, it's inside a tunnel. You're still sharing the bandwidth potentially, depending on what kind of circuit you have with maybe your neighbors in the same building. But the speeds are getting so high now. I mean, if you're going from 1.5 to even 10 or 20 up to 100, that you're only going to be using maybe 10 to 1% of that bandwidth anyway, or what
Absolutely.
you're used to. So you're going to see a performance increase in that standpoint. But in addition, a lot of times what customers are doing now is, since I now have a direct internet access or DIA at my location, instead of having all my users shove their internet traffic back to the corporate data center and then out my main internet pipe, let me offload that on the local internet.
Nice.
That's there locally, and the only thing that's critical coming back to my data center is in that tunnel, and everything else is pushed off straight out to the internet.
Nice. And honestly, I literally at my house have a gig connection right now from Cox, and I pay like $100 for it, right?
Yep.
And I am a power user because all my kids are downloading Netflix and YouTube videos, and anyone with kids nowadays knows how much is actually coming through that. But absolutely. So the savings from a client perspective are really coming from the service provider, because you're going to reduce the cost of paying for those circuits, and then you're actually going to have better use of your circuits at that location. So like you said, instead of having them go through the internet at the main pipe at the office, even though they're in their remote location, they can offload regular internet traffic going one way, then secure corporate traffic the other way. Now that kind of does still bring up the security question, right?
Yes.
So talk to me about, how do we secure that to make sure that someone isn't on the internet hacking into us, doing all that stuff?
Absolutely. So
hackers do.
As I said, the corporate traffic that's coming across the pipe, that's encrypted via IPsec tunnels. That data can't be sniffed on the outside, but really what we care about is all my users bringing in their iPads and going on Netflix or surfing websites. You can integrate in your router, integrates in with Cloud Web Security from Cisco. So that gives you the ability to kind of enforce web use policies across your environment, even if they're not coming all the way back to your data center, which traditionally you would have a proxy at your data center and control what types of traffic and that users could browse to. Now with Cloud Web Security, you can actually do that out at the branches, still from a centralized controller or management in the cloud. And no matter which branch they're at, they're following those same policies. And then on top of that, we can also look at leveraging things like advanced malware protection or AMP, either at the endpoint or from a network perspective, to do that malware detection and malware protection for all of your clients.
So the reality of what you're saying is that even with IWAN, you still need the same security, even if you didn't have IWAN in place. It's that same security strategy,
yes,
right?
Absolutely.
So, you still got to secure it. You still got to make sure that you're aware before, during, and after an attack, right?
Correct.
If you haven't been attacked yet, you're probably going to be, right?
Or you don't know it yet.
Or you just don't know it. Yeah, exactly right. They're sitting there capturing keystrokes and watching your video. Very creepy. But yeah, this is what's happening out there. So, okay. So saving, security, you mentioned simplification. Talk to me about, how does it simplify things from a network perspective for, maybe a small, medium-sized business doesn't have a lot of resources and things like that.
Yeah, so they around some of their new product lines, APIC Enterprise Manager or APIC EM, can allow customers to deploy their routers in a kind of a zero-touch deployment standpoint, where I can put some baseline configuration on it, deploy it out at the site, and then utilize the APIC EM to push the rest of the information out, to establish the VPN tunnel, to create a lot of the PFR configurations, and that's kind of the IWAN plugin that allows you to push that out almost seamlessly in zero touch. So a lot easier to deploy your remote sites from that standpoint. And
so just for the non-technical folks, APIC EM, like, what is that?
So technically it stands for Application Policy, I believe it is Infrastructure Controller.
Okay.
On that, and then Enterprise Manager. So there are two types of APICs. For IWAN, it's APIC EM, and that's essentially a controller that allows you to manage and control your routers and switches in your environment.
So if you have, let's say you got 30 offices. Mm-hmm. And you're trying to make a change to the routing of those 30 offices. Instead of having to go each one of those offices and touch each one, update the router, do all that stuff, you can go to the APIC EM, make your changes, decide what you want to be, and have it roll out.
There, a lot of that functionality, some of that functionality is still coming in APIC EM, but that is the vision. That's where they're going. Is everything will be controlled from APIC EM and allow you to deploy policies, to allow you to deploy new devices and control QoS settings, a multitude of features and technologies.
Right. And for those of you, once again, non-technical QoS settings, basically that's, identifying voice packets and making sure that voice goes without stutter and it goes with this, right? So you get real sound coming out of it versus something strange. Identifying high priority packets on the network. So maybe it's real data or ERP application versus
mission critical.
Yeah. Versus something like, I'm on YouTube or downloading Netflix or whatever, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, good. All right, and that's all automated, built into this, and that's what you mean by simplification, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then you mentioned enablement in the beginning where you're saying, hey, this is going to enable folks.
Some, right? New business models.
So what do you mean by that? Talk about that some more.
Well, a lot of customers today are trying to reduce a lot of the infrastructure that they have on premise.
Yep.
So getting rid of Exchange and going into Office 365 or Google applications or various software as a service type applications. Through the historical dedicated circuit, MPLS, I'm still bringing all that traffic back into my core and out the internet. But now that I have that DIA at each branch location, now instead of that traffic coming in through my corporate data center, now again it's going out to the internet and it's getting straight to the cloud instead of having to go through some additional latency of frame relay circuit, and that just enables that to be more effective for all your users.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if you're trying to do video or anything that requires bandwidth or anything that requires let's say an Internet of Things rollout where you don't want to be flooding the pipe at corporate, you want things to be able to actually communicate directly into each office and things like that. You can actually do that with IWAN because you're going to have bigger pipes and lower cost, and it'll enable your business to do different things, right?
Correct.
Backup, disaster recovery, there's all sorts of things that it enables. So if you're trying to create an agile company that's able to respond quickly to the marketplace or to changes going on within it, or to be what's the word I'm looking for, where you can be attacked but still be standing. There's a word
resilient.
For that. Resilient, that's it. But you could tell it's early in the morning. Had a late night last night. So be resilient. Where it's important nowadays to have a company that's resilient, because otherwise the network goes down, everybody tends to go home and business is done, right? Because clients can't order stuff, things don't happen. That's great. So now we talked about this whole time. We've been talking really about Cisco IWAN.
Yes.
And then I know Cisco actually. I looked it up. They also refer to themselves as Cisco SD-WAN. I noticed as well.
Correct.
And so, what's the difference, or is there a difference? And talk to me about it.
Yeah, there's IWAN is a SD-WAN.
That's software defined.
Software
right?
defined
SD
WAN.
Software defined wide area network. That's what we're talking about, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
So IWAN is an SD-WAN architecture. They're really the difference from a Cisco perspective is a lot of the integrations, like I said, around things like cloud web security. You have the power of Cisco behind you. You have Cisco. Predominantly, 85% or more have Cisco switches and routers existing, firewall protection, everything along those lines from Cisco. So it's kind of all integrated. It's what the majority of engineers are used to running every day.
Yep.
So really Where Cisco strong points is just you've got the power of Cisco, the giant gorilla that really enjoys doing networking for enterprise customers. They're going to keep developing and pushing the button and making new features and that research and development behind.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And so, just so people understand, in our industry, if you're not from our industry, you need to understand that when it comes to networking, what winds up happening is that before standards are set, meaning, there's the standards body that comes together and they decide on these standards and they say, hey, this is what's going to be, let's just say SD-WAN, right? This is now the standard for SD-WAN. This is what it looks like. This is what it comprises of. This is how it works. Before those standards are set, companies like Cisco, who are kind of the 800-pound gorilla is what Chad's referring to, right? They are going in and they're saying, look, before the standard's set, I'm going to go ahead and say this is going to be the standard that I'm going to set. And typically it's above the standards. So there was a routing protocol. Cisco has done this since the early days, right?
Yes.
They did this with, why am I spacing?
EIGRP.
Yes, right. EIGRP versus, what was it, IGRP?
At the time, yes.
Yeah, before it had come out. But it's just another example of, a market leader coming out with a standard that will be above, meaning more secure, more able to, work correctly and consistently for enterprise type customers, and do that ahead of the market itself, so that when the standards bodies do say, yep, this is what we're going to do, then they've met those standards too, but they have other features on top of that. That's basically kind of the way I think of it. Is that still correct with IWAN?
Yeah, so Cisco, along with some other, other larger companies,
Sure.
they definitely invest in times in helping ratify those standards,
Yep.
And making sure that they're on top of their game and kind of trying to stay ahead of the curve.
Yep, exactly. Great. Well, I think we went a little long, but this is a great topic. I know it's a money saver. I know people are interested in saving money right
Yes.
now. They need the tech because they're trying to digitize their companies and trying to figure out how they're going to compete, how they're going to be more resilient. This really is a great solution for clients. So definitely reach out to your team at NextNet. Chad will be ready and waiting by the phone, I'm sure, for phone calls. And so thank you all for listening. Feel free to send us a note at info@nextnetpartners.com or give us a call, 602-247-8600. Thanks.
When she turned 24, only been with one man. What happened to her plan?